Hello, welcome to the breathing space. I'm Kim Standyman. This is the lovely Morna Haste. Hello, Morna.
Hi. Okay. Hi, everyone.
We are coming to you. Yeah, we are coming to you not live once again. So much fun. Let's be completely transparent. We have pre-recorded this, so with the intention of giving ourselves some space, which is what we're all about, is to create space, create some breathing opportunity. So let's do that right now. Let's just tune into what's happening in our mind, our body, our spirit. Give ourselves permission to arrive in this moment. And I invite you to let go of whatever list making or to-do checking that you might be doing in this moment, just to be with us for the next 10 to 20 minutes. Be in the conversation, and just like we've said in previous shows, notice what is landing with you. What are those gems? Because whatever we offer in these shows, we believe that it's meant for somebody to hear. And sometimes we need to hear it. So let's just intentionally take a deep breath together. Arrive in the space. And last show we talked about celebrating. There was lots of celebrations going on that week for Canada Day, and really getting into a deep conversation about living with kind of the yin and yang of life, and what we appreciate about that within all of this stuff that's happening in our world. And that really lends to this conversation. And the question this week is, what time is it in your world? So let you sit with that for a minute.
Can you say that again, Kim?
Yeah, what time is it in your world? And I know for some people, the automatic is to look at the clock. And no, but look at it logically. Yeah. Well, it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon. But what we're really asking is, what matters? What time is it right now in your world? So before we get into answering that question, Morna, I'm curious about offering some context about this very powerful question. And what does it mean, time is it? What time is it? What does that mean for you? How would you offer some context around it?
Well, just firstly, reflecting on, this is a powerful question that I've been using for some time, and we've been using together in our work together. And I know that it's a question that's used in other circles, and particularly the Art of Hosting community. So if you're part of that community, you've probably heard this question before. And it's really, it's an incredibly powerful check-in question. And it is around really an inquiry and exploration into, I want to say, what time is it? That's obvious because that's the question. And to really, what is happening in your life right now? What are the elements of your life? What's happening in your life? What do you want to pay attention to? What are you ready for? What have you been holding back on? There are just so many ways to interpret and look at this question. And actually, we can actually also relate it to the clock in some ways, and not in a literal sense. It's 10 to 12 literally for me right now. But thinking about the clock, if you think of, maybe you could think of midnight as the end of your life even. Where are you? What time is it in that sense? And also, just even thinking about the day and all of the different things that kind of go on, during your day. So this question contextually is in a much broader sense of really taking a moment and tuning into, what time is it in my life right now? And actually this follows on from, I think, a question we asked a couple of shows ago about what season are we in. And at different times in your life, even day to day, you're going to answer this question differently.
Absolutely.
but it's a hugely powerful question to understand the context of your life. And can I segue into a broader?
Yeah, please. Yeah.
Because we want to, before we go into sort of maybe answering some of this question for ourselves and where our work is headed, Kim and I have been having many conversations about what time is it on our planet? Mm-hmm. What time are we alive in collectively as a species? And in answering that question, I would firstly say that we're alive at a really critical time for us as a species collectively. There are many, many forces and factors that we're experiencing right now, but that are also coming at us really quickly, that are going to radically transform and reshape life on planet Earth. And so, I feel like we're at a critical choice moment as a collective species. Are we going to really tune into the reality of our situation as a species and come together and take action to create a world that works for us? Or are we going to, I guess the other option is to really go to sleep? Or, with the other time that we're living in is a time of overwhelming distraction. And I want to use the word, and I don't even know if I can get this out, anesthetization. Is that a word?
Yes.
There are so many factors in the modern world that show us a false reality, that numb us, that distract us, that keep us focused on things that feel important but aren't. Gosh, I could talk a lot about that. What does that bring up for you? Just thinking about what is the moment that we're alive in as a species?
Yeah, and I would agree with you that it is a critical time. There's, if I think about my great-grandparents' reality compared to the reality that we're living in now, that's only, 100 some years. And in that short period of time, we have experienced so many changes and impacts to our environment. And I think it's a time of waking up and really getting honest. And I think that's honesty collectively, but also honesty individually. And so I think it's a time of us just waking up and being real and saying, having a voice in all of this, even though some of us may feel like we don't have a voice for the collective. I think we do. And I think it's okay to be in that space of what matters to me right now from the collective point of view, but also from an individual standpoint.
I agree.
It's a really big, this is a big conversation.
It's big, and I think that often, there are so many things that could potentially hold us back, but I think one thing that holds us back is this feeling of overwhelm, or this feeling that there's really nothing that we can do to change the situation that we're in as a species. And where do I start? What do I do? And I actually want to acknowledge that that's true. Individually, absolutely individually, there are things we can do. We're always responsible for our own choices as individuals. We're responsible for things like where we spend our money, who we vote for, who we have in our lives, what kind of work we do,
how we take care of ourselves.
How we take care of ourselves. Are we working on healing whatever trauma we might have experienced that we're replaying on a daily, blah, blah, blah. Just so many things that we can be personally responsible for. And the reality is that we're living in a time when none of us individually have the answer to the collective issues we're facing. So we need each other more than ever.
Oh, yes.
We need
to come together and embrace each other regardless of our differences. And yeah.
Well, and I would actually say because of our differences.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. We need to pretty rapidly figure out some of the reasons why we segregate from each other. Why we have views of I'm better than you or not. Racism, lack of inclusion, gender inequality. Sexual identity inequality, all of the different ways that we stop people getting access to the table. We have to create different tables and bring diverse voices together, because to me, it's the only way we're going to not just make it through the rapid changes that are going to be happening for us as a species, because that's not good enough. I feel like this is an opportunity that we're also alive in a time where we can actually figure out how to create a world in which we can thrive, and not just where exactly. Everyone can thrive, and not everyone. Just those with privilege. Yeah. And so that takes different kinds of conversations. It takes a different way of being, and it takes it's going to take all of us to learn different skills. And there's a really famous, I'm pretty sure it's Einstein, who knows, I'm pretty sure it's Einstein, really famous quote that we can't solve problems from the same mindset that created them. And yet, we seem to be doing that over and over and over again. So I do feel, to bring it back full circle, that we are alive in a critical time, but we're also alive in a really exciting time.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with you. And maybe we'll just sort of micro a little bit and ask the question of what time is it for us or for you? So if you want to answer that.
Well, I'll answer it in a couple of different ways. What time is it for me? Well, there's a lot of stuff going on in my personal life. It's a complex time in my personal world, and with a lot of challenging things to work on, which I think probably everyone in our community knows if they've been following along with our conversations. But you know what? I also want to say that that's nothing unusual. We all have challenging things to deal with, and some of us have incredibly traumatic and challenging things to deal with. And at the same time, I feel like I'm really coming into my own in terms of my offerings in the world and my own leadership and the stand that I want to take. And, I've been privileged enough to spend getting close to 20 years now working in the transformation space, understanding what it takes to create personal transformation, organizational transformation, system-wide transformation across many different cultural lenses, viewpoints, different ways of being. I've worked in a very large bicultural organization, a consensus organization, and been teaching for a very long time. And so I also know that it is really time for me to take a more powerful stand at this time on the planet, and to really create more spaces where we can get to work in the way that we need to get to work. And so I'm going to, and of course, a lot of that involves us. So I'm going to throw this question
Some
back.
of that.
Yeah, I'm going to throw this question back to you, Kim. What time is it for you?
It's the first thing that's coming up for me is a time of slowing down so I can speed up.
Yes, thank you. Hallelujah.
Yeah.
Because say something about that, because it feels like it's such a, I don't even have
it's fundamental, I think, in what my learning has been over the last, I would say, 5 years, is noticing the cycles I've been in around productivity and around work and around overwork and overwhelm, and really just being in the training ground of slowing down and resting and creating space, and how that helps cultivate this idea of tiger time, which we talked about the last show, efficiency of like bursts of productivity. So I'm really noticing it's time for me to step into my own genius around what I feel my purpose is in the world, and take a stand and honor my last name even in a more powerful way. That standing even in, you know, I'm answering that in piece more confidently and with more power and more or more empowered, I should say. I feel like my years of teaching and facilitating and mentoring have really prepared me for what's to come in the next year, where I can, you know, use my experiences and in a way that will help others train and, you know, ooh, my words haven't caught up with my brain.
I love it.
Happened to anybody else?
Never happens to anyone else. I feel like it's a beautiful segue into actually talking about, you know, our shared work that we've been doing. And, you know, for Kim and I, as I think we've been alluding to in some previous shows, we've been in a fairly, a very significant period of sense making. And reflecting on the experiments that we've been running, and really trying to scale our work and scale our impact, because, you know, both of us have been working in the training, leadership development, you know, transformation space for many years, and so, you know, trying to make sense of our body of work and trying to make sense of, well, okay, how do we actually get this work to the people who need it, and to the causes that need it, and to the spaces that need it, and really understanding what our combined contribution can make. And so over the coming weeks, we're going to be making some pretty big announcements about what that's going to look like and how you can participate. And we're really, we're going to be taking a more powerful stand, and we're going to be making a call to warriorship. Really a call to stepping into the kind of leadership that we need now on the planet, and the way of being that we as women leaders, as females who are who have something powerful to contribute, what is the way of being that we need? And we need new and different ways of training in what it means to be a warrior. And I want to share just the beginnings of a definition of this word warriorship, because we're going to be talking about it quite a bit. We're going to be going into it in much more depth. So this is just to really, I guess, I want to say break the ice, but from my end, it feels more like
here I am, yeah. But I think it's a door. I feel like we're at this door and we're kind of opening it. We're starting to open it, and this is really we're at the door of this idea of a call to warriorship, and that's what we're making sense of right now. This is the grown zone for us, is articulating it, because we know in our being that this is what we want to offer the world, and it's just how do we connect you with it is what we're working on right now.
What we're working on. And so just to look at this word warrior, you know, and I know that if you're listening, if you're watching us, when I say the word warrior, it probably immediately invokes an image, a feeling, an idea of what this word is. And you know, traditionally, it's also been used around the idea of war, going to war, going into battle. And I actually don't want to shy away from that, because I do believe we're entering into a time of battle, but we're not entering into a time where I think we should be looking to annihilate each other and to create enemies and the other, because we're talking about the polar opposite of that.
Yeah.
We're talking about a way of being, which is really, in Tibetan tradition, it's a tradition of human bravery and fearlessness. And by fearlessness, I don't mean not experiencing fear, because that's not possible. If you're alive, you're going to experience fear because it's normal, and it's actually good. But it's around fearlessness, which is not being hooked by that fear when you're helping others. So it's a tradition of human bravery and fearlessness with helping others. Mm-hmm. That is fundamentally what we mean by warriorship. It's a fundamental way of being in the world. It's a fundamental way of leading. It's a fundamental way of creating change. And it requires training.
Yes.
And it requires ongoing training. So, if you think about how a warrior trains, it's not a one and done deal. Think about the tradition of dojos, of that. It's a lifelong training journey, which never ends.
Never ends.
It never ends. So I wanted to also bring that flavor in because, between Kim and I, we've literally trained thousands of people and created hundreds of, trainings, workshops,
the content is like, and that's what the Grown Zone has been, is that we've been shuffling through these masses of content that we bring together collectively, and how do we organize it in a way that makes an impact for the warriors that we want to work with and support and help train. And it's so inspiring. This word brings up so much for me. I'm excited. I feel like it taps into the feminine in a way that's so needed right now. Historically, women are warriors. I mean, just Mother Earth, if you think about it, fierce. Like, there's just so much metaphor around it. There's so much feeling around it. And that's what we're really trying to harness and engage with, to be able to create our contribution.
And I love that, Kim, and really, I think also take a stand for what we've learned over the last, long time. Being in the space of teaching, transformation, understanding how change happens.
Yeah.
We really want to take a stand for what the education needs to look like, and it may be a little bit non-traditional, especially to what's being presented, particularly in the online space now.
And social media just generally. Right?
And social media just generally. So we are super excited. Watch this space. You will absolutely be the first to know. There is no doubt about it. And we'll be offering some really powerful training, some really powerful free training coming up. Is there anything that you want to chime in with, Kim, before we kind of ask the question again? And
yeah, I'm really curious about what you're hearing in terms of this idea of warrior, what you're feeling around it. So please put some comments in. And again, let's just tune back into the question. And I think it's such a powerful reflection question that I would invite everyone to sit with and reflect on.
What time is it in your world? What time is it in your world? Let us know. Let us know what you care about. We really want to hear.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thanks, Kim.
Thanks, Morna.
All right. We'll see you all next week, and watch this space for the call to warriorship.